Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video, I'll be reviewing the DM's Guild mini-adventure Baldur's Gate, The Fall of Elturel, designed by Anthony Joyce with Justin Arman for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your DM's Guild shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shoutouts to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, Andy, and Chris. And gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, Numa, Marcos, David, Vicente, Gilberto, Shane, K-Cert, 2B, Adam, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Rosh, Limpy Spuds, and Jerome. Thank you all very much for your support. So one of my biggest problems with Descent into Avernus, if you have watched my Roll20 review, and it's kind of a problem I have with a lot of the official D&D campaign books, is that their introductions kind of suck. Like their first chapters are not so good. And this might be a combination of like the level 1 D&D just kind of sucks, which if you're interested in learning more about my thoughts about that, you can watch our DM roundtable on level 1. And the other problem is a lot of times some of the best stuff you can do for level 1 is you tie in your players like personal stories and quest hooks. And obviously Wizards doesn't know, what kind of characters everybody is playing. But even then, I feel like a lot of their opening intros are very lacking in the beginning. And Descent into Avernus had that problem. And it had a great inciting incident that it just didn't use. The inciting incident, if you're not familiar with Descent into Avernus, is that the city of Elturel is pulled into the first layer of hell, which is Avernus. It's like this contract was finally executed and the entire city was plunged down, a huge catastrophe, which is an awesome inciting incident. But instead, the actual story begins with the characters, the party in Baldur's Gate, and they're welcoming refugees in from Elturel. And then from there, you basically bum around and do a bunch of stuff around Baldur's Gate, trying to figure out essentially why Elturel got pulled into the abyss, and basically to get everybody to level 5 before you actually go to hell. It's not a very fun opening. In fact, one of the first things you do is you literally go to like a bar, the Elf Song Tavern, the famous bar from Baldur's Gate, and like get into like a bar fight there. Basically, you shake somebody down. Like it's not a good opening. It's very weak. So what this does, Baldur's Gate: The Fall of Elturel, is attempt to provide a alternative introduction. I was really excited because that's exactly what I want. I need these new, better intro. I mean, I had to make a whole nother intro for Tomb of Annihilation because I thought that one was incredibly lame also. You can't just teleport people to this like remote location and then like, okay, here you go, supply up, and then go to the jungle. Like, you got to make it cool. So I think it does a pretty good job of that. It does tie players in a bit closer. So it's designed for level 1 characters who are going to start Descent into Avernus, although it also, because weirdly enough, the Cult of the Dragon factors in, which they've done this before too with the official campaign books, where like, they'll mention the Ring of Winter and Storm King's Thunder, but it's actually in Tomb of Annihilation, or a Cult of Elemental Air will appear in Storm King's Thunder. Like there's some overlap between stuff, and like the Cult of the Dragon makes an appearance, or at least is I think they do make an appearance in Descent into Avernus. I don't know exactly how the timeline there is supposed to be. Like, even if you beat the campaign, I guess there's still like cultists operating around. But in any way, this could serve technically as also an intro to Tyranny of Dragons, which is very interesting because it involves the Cult of the Dragon, and then it has you returning to Baldur's Gate, which is something that happens in Tyranny of Dragons. You have to basically make your way to Baldur's Gate at some point in that adventure. Not quite super low level, but it does happen. So it could serve in both of those campaigns, which is pretty interesting. I do think it does a pretty good job. It's definitely better than the bar fight because it can kind of skip through that. It doesn't quite go as far as I was hoping it would, which it's a very short. I mean, it's designed for a 2-hour adventure. It's only a 22-page supplement. It's only got basically the one kind of encounter battle map and then a few random like role-playing social things to do. So it effectively does what it sets out to do, but I do wish that it actually used Elturel more. In this case, it puts you close to Elturel, and then you kind of witness it from a much, you can actually see it happening, I think is the idea. It's like 10 miles away, and then you're part of the actual refugees, along with Rhea Mantlemorn of the Hell Riders. You get to accompany all those refugees, and then be from that point of view, instead of from the Baldur's Gate seeing these people come in, you're part of that group trying to get into the city, which I do think is way, way better and more effective than the other way around. So I do like that, but I wish it actually we got to visit Elturel and it was more of a like just kind of make the characters care about this city that we suddenly have to go and save. Obviously, the best thing to do is to create like backstories for your characters, or hopefully the players are doing this that actually tie them into Elturel. And one of the ways it does that here is by providing a background as a Hell Rider, which is awesome. That I would totally recommend doing that if for at least one of your characters, because that automatically ties them into Elturel as well as the whole like Zariel Abyss Hell plot. So I think that's a really cool thing to do. It adds 3 new backgrounds. Order of the Gauntlet, which is kind of the select a collection of like all the noble leaders who and paladins and zealous killers of evil. And then the Flaming Fist Mercenaries, which is basically the security force of Baldur's Gate, and then the Hell Riders, which were the security force of Elturel. So those are the 3 new backgrounds we get, and they're fully fleshed out and everything. So a very good supplement, or not a supplement, a mini adventure as an alternative introduction to Descent into Avernus. And the production quality here is stunning. It is stunning. This might be one of the best looking products I've seen on the DM's Guild. Even though it's very short, it is extremely attractive. It is extremely well organized, well edited. I'm very impressed. I mean, it's even got an adventure primer. It's separated into 4 chapters despite only being like 20 pages. It's got really good organization. There's gorgeous artwork on every single page. We get art. I love the way that the font is integrated. We get this kind of blue on like the brown parchment. Like it's so good. It looks so gorgeous to flip through. We get a full color battle map. This is Elven Tower cartography. It's excellent, and this comes in separate player handouts with player versions of this and the handouts that are used. Like, just everything was done to like the max level for production value, which is it really does go a long way. This is already like a good, well-written adventure. Again, it's very small and short. You can play through this whole thing in a session, but the production values are so well done and so professional and extremely impressive. Just to go over really quick, so it gives you options for tying players into already the Hell Riders, the Flaming Fist, and the Order of the Gauntlet. You can kind of use them depending on which ones your players are interested in being. Those are multiple factions that they can be working for or have involved in their backgrounds or whatever. But they learned that the Cult of the Dragon is operating north of Elturel in the Eltegard Woods, I believe it's called. And they set out, there was 2 events that occur outside of the woods. This is the chapter that I really wish was a lot longer. And granted, this was not what this adventure set out to do. This adventure was just set out to be a very short alternative introduction. What I would have liked to see is a much more expanded, almost supplement on Elturel in case we wanted to actually use the city, have the players visit there, or even have the adventure start in Elturel. I don't know. I just think it would have been a lot more effective and nice. I guess we do start in Elturel here in chapter 1, but there's really nothing that lets me. I don't expect it to be the same as the Baldur's Gate, because obviously there's a lot of information on Baldur's Gate in Descent into Avernus, but it just feels like Baldur's Gate isn't the city that's jacked with in Descent into Avernus. It's not like Baldur's Gate is dragged into Avernus, which that would have made everything way more different and made Descent into Avernus made a lot more sense that it used Baldur's Gate so much. I don't know why they're just needing to use all these Sword Coast cities, I guess, but Elturel is the one that's fucked up. So having more things to happen in Elturel would have been a lot more effective. I like that chapter 2 kind of tries to do that, but it's really just in the area around the city, and there's pretty simple little events that are kind of designed to be more role-playing than anything else. So I would have liked to see that much more expanded and more interesting, because I think if you make the players care about that city much more directly, have them make friends and NPCs and all these things that could take up, I mean, ideally probably take multiple sessions though, but at least like have a good sized session inside the city so that when it actually happens and it pulls, maybe some of the survivors, maybe that, you witness a wedding, which is one of the events that happens in chapter 2. And for some reason, only one of them is a survivor and the other one's not, and they're distraught or something. Like, put those emotional notes in there so that when it's actually pulled down into hell, it's less of a, oh man, we need to go save this city, but more of an actual personal, like, oh man, I know these people. I remember this person and that person and this tailor and this, person that we saved. Like that's what's really going to tie the players in there and make it more effective. So I do wish that had been expanded a bit more, but I understand that we're trying to just make a shorter supplement here. The actual fight scene is fine. It's pretty straightforward. You're fighting cultists. I think it's a fun twist that you're going there to fight the cult of the dragon, and then you show up and you see other cultists that you don't know about have just killed the first cultist. I think that's a cool trope in storytelling, is when you want to introduce a new big bad villain, you have them kind of kick the ass of the other villain, to where that villain that you thought was the big bad is now like either dead or subservient to the first one. That's a cool way of really hyping up your new threat. And in this case would be the Cult of the Dead. So that'd be pretty cool, especially if your party was already dealing with the Cult of the Dragon. But this is supposed to be a level 1 adventure, so most likely that's probably not the case unless you're played it in a different campaign or something. But I think it's a pretty cool little fight scene. There is an option of using an owlbear if things get out of hand and you have multiple people. You do have Rhea with you, though, I think. So you've got some Hell Riders. So it's not supposed to be a very difficult encounter. And again, level 1, there's not much you can do. I do appreciate that we're given some stat blocks, though, which are straight out of Descent into Avernus, like Fist of Bane and the Nightblade. Weirdly, we don't get the stat blocks for the Tyranny of Dragons figures, although they're not really supposed to be combatants either. I think only one of the cultists is even supposed to survive, that you can save them. And then they tell you where the dungeon is, the base of operations for the Cult of the Dead 3, which is beneath the bathhouse in Baldur's Gate, which is the information that you need to get from doing that like tavern fight in the beginning, I believe. I forgot the steps. It's been a year since I looked at Descent into Avernus now, but that's a much more interesting opening, that you get to go out into these woods, fight these new cultists, learn this information, and then as you're coming back to report this information, that's when you see Elturel actually get fucking dragged into the abyss, which is pretty cool. Although Chapter 4 is basically just like, all right, now we start Descent into Avernus. Or Tyranny of Dragons, if for some reason, I guess you could combine those things together, maybe, if you see that dragged into hell, and oh, by the way, we've got this Cult of the Dragon stuff happening on the surface. That'd be nuts if you could combine those campaigns together. I do think it's a good alternative opening. If I were running Descent into Avernus as written, then yes, I would prefer using this over the existing introduction of having the players start in Baldur's Gate, seeing the refugees come, and have them go to the Elf Song Tavern and basically work for the Flamefist Mercenaries and all this stuff. I think this is a more effective opening. So for that reason, I do think that this is an excellent supplement. My only complaint is I wish it had gone a little bit further into drawing us into Elturel. I was even picturing having it be like a disaster movie setup where the players are in Elturel when this happens, and so they get to do things like kind of like the opening of Tyranny of Dragons, where the whole city is under attack and they have to run around and basically save people, which is a tricky thing to do in level 1. It's a tricky thing to run, but that's the kind of thing that I'd want to see from a supplement. So it didn't do that, and I'm a little disappointed about that. I do like that it introduced the Cult of the Dead 3, and it has a better way of getting to the bathhouse dungeon, but I think it was a missed opportunity to actually have players in Elturel during the fall and have them escape and actually rescue people, but then maybe not be able to rescue other people, and then see the whole city get dragged under. And all of a sudden, and that's a cool way for them to find each other. You know, they all meet up as part of this refugee group, and then you have to haul and get to Baldur's Gate and decide what the hell happened. So that's my 2 cents, though. And then the backgrounds are really cool. You can see we've got extra magic items. Again, the production values are incredible. Full-on tables, personality traits, bonds, flaws for all the different backgrounds. As I mentioned, I would definitely recommend somebody play a damn Hell Rider if you're going to play the Descent into Avernus campaign with new characters, because that is an awesome background and effectively ties them into the city of Elturel very, very well. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Baldur's Gate, The Fall of Elturel. Pro: high quality production values, professional layout, and gorgeous artwork. Absolutely stunning visual presentation throughout for this product. Pro: it effectively creates a better introduction than Ascent into Avernus and ties into Tyranny of Dragons, which is very, very impressive and cool. Pros: 3 new character backgrounds themed for Descent into Avernus, including Hell Rider. As I just mentioned, I would very recommend doing that because that's a neat thing, a way to tie your PCs into the campaign. And pro: full color battle map and separate player handouts. No complaints from me. I absolutely love having battle maps available, and all these handouts, pictures that you're seeing, are available as separate player handouts in a separate file. My only con is that it doesn't actually take place in Elturel. As I mentioned, I was kind of hoping it would do that disaster scene movie and really tie players into the city a little bit more. Instead, it ends up tying the cult thing into it, and at least has us close to Elturel so we can witness it happening. Final verdict, stunning art and layout help make the Fall of Elturel a much better alternative introduction to Descent into Avernus. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.